Today on the today on the Daily Review, we're gonna do a Bela Tarr movie called The Turin Horse. Came out in 2011. It's Hungarian. Oh, I fucking set the hotkeys to shift. Oh, I guess I didn't do it right. Okay, great. So I'm figuring out the hotkeys on OBS. Oh, sorry. Crud on there. All right. I don't own this movie, but it's on Canvas. Or no, excuse me, Canopy with a K, which is like a movie service for colleges. So you can, I don't know, whatever. And they have a lot of fucking artsy-fatsy movies on that. But their streaming sucks. It's like the worst streaming because it doesn't stop and buffer. It just like goes to really low grade pixelation and then like comes back up and you're like, oh god. So it's like kind of going in and out. It makes you kind of dizzy. Or like it feels like your eyes are going in and out of focus. Odie, sit down. Please. Please sit down. We just went outside. You cannot scratch the door. Go up, up, up. Jesus. Okie dokes. So let's talk about this movie. This is what they call slow cinema. A masterpiece of slow cinema. It's slow and very deliberate. It's about a father and his daughter somewhere in Hungary, in a barren land. They don't even say Hungary, but it's just, the movie's Hungarian, so I assumed it was Hungary. And you don't really know. It's like an indeterminate time period. But America exists. But where they live is like there's nothing. So it's like, I think it's like probably early 1800s or mid 1800s. And it starts with a parable about Nietzsche. Famously, the philosopher that said God is dead, and his philosophies were about that in a godless universe, you are God of your own life. You're kind of the determinant, and you can become Ubermensch or whatever. You can become like the control of your own destiny. But this doesn't seem to be talking so much about that and more about the godless universe thing. So they tell a little parable about how Nietzsche saw a horse just getting whipped mercilessly by its owner, and he went up to it and cried and said, what a nightmare life is, and then died the next day or something like that. So we don't know if that story's true, but that's the story we get at the beginning, and then our movie starts and there is no dialogue for like a half hour, and we see everything deliberately happening. This is black and white. I'll just go through it. Day one, the man brings the horse home, and all the details of putting it back in its stall, taking the cart off, taking the bridles off, and all this stuff. And then his daughter helps him. She makes dinner, which is 2 potatoes, just boiled. But we see everything. We see her take the water. We see pour it in the thing, let it boil. They eat, and it's all focused on the man. The man's much older than the daughter. And they don't use utensils. And he's had like a stroke or something because his left arm seems paralyzed. And he just kind of like tears at it like an animal and just like kind of grapples the skin off of the potato, and then is just eating it, and it's super hot. And he's going, and you're like, dude, just let it fucking cool off. And I thought at one point he put salt on it, but I was definitely wrong. This movie has got no pleasantries at all. Salt would be like a luxury in this movie. So they just eat their potato. And, this is all super long shots. I think the average shot length is 300 seconds. I saw another thing on IMDb that said the movie was made in 30 takes. And that's like kind of a weird way to phrase that. Does that mean 30 shots? It doesn't normally. But I'm trying to be like, it doesn't make sense. I feel like there's more than 30 shots. Plus 30 shots, average shot length 300 seconds. I can't do that math. But that's 2.5 hour movie. Is that right? So I don't know. Anyway, somebody do that math and write it in the comments. Yeah, so then they do their nightly chores, like undressing, and he has trouble dressing because of his paralyzed arm. So the daughter like slowly undresses him, not like in a creepy way, and then lights the fire and turns the lights out, like the kerosene lanterns or whatever. And then it's day 2, and they get up, and then she gets water, and they started dressing, and and they like drink some what I thought was vodka, but apparently it's palinka, which is like a fruit brandy, or maybe that's some another drink, and this is potato vodka because that's what it looked like. But anyway, they drink, and then they get the horse out, and they get the cab ready, and then the yeah, this is, I realize how boring this is, and basically the horse doesn't want to go because it's kind of sick and old, so they go back and they dress, and this is like this is like an hour into the movie, honestly, and then he chops wood, and then they eat another potato. And then a guy comes, this is like an hour and 10 minutes in, a guy comes to buy vodka or palinka or whatever it's called. And this is the first, like I think there's only been like 2 lines of dialogue. I think the woman says it's ready and like maybe one other thing. And the man mainly just grumbles and stuff. But this guy comes and is talking about how it's a godless universe, basically, and that's where we kind of get a lot of these philosophical ideas. And our main character is like, "That's bullshit," and the guy's like, "All right," and he leaves. It's great because he's like so convincing, and then he gets so easily like, "Well, fine, you don't want to listen to me, whatever." And the wind is always blowing, by the way. There's always howling of wind, and it's like real. Not really sure how they did it. Maybe they just had maybe it's a very windy part of the world, or they just had like giant turbines like blowing out because the hair's just going. It's crazy. And then and then let's see, and then they eat a potato. And this time we see the daughter doing it. Sorry, I just got a text there. Yeah, and then it's day 3, and she goes out to fill the water, and then the horse won't eat, and they clean up the manure, and they fucking eat a potato, and then gypsies arrive. And the gypsies are like trying to get water out of the well, and they're like, "Come with us to America," to the girl, and the girl's like, "All right, no." And then an old man from the gypsy group gives the woman a book and says, "Thanks for the water," or whatever. And then they go inside. The gypsies get run off by the man, and then they go inside, and she reads the book for like 10 minutes out loud, very slow, like the kid in class who couldn't read, going, Chingachgook walked up the side of the mountain. Anyway, whatever. Anyway, here come what was happening there. That part was pretty confusing. I didn't really get it. And then she gets more water from the well, and the storm is going crazy. But guess what? The fucking well is dry. So they pack to leave, and they take everything they're gonna leave in a handcart, and they're pushing it with the horse. They're pushing it with the horse and buggy thing, and the horse is just walking behind, and then it's too hard, so they come back. And then it's day 5, they get dressed, and they have some more to drink, and the horse is in really rough shape, and they eat a potato, and they look out the window, and then everything goes dark. And then they light the lamps, and the lamps won't light because the oil is gone, and they can't get it to go on, and the woman says, "What is this?" And the father says, "I don't know." and then it's the sixth day, and it's complete darkness, and they just sit there and look at the table and eat it. He eats a potato, like tries to eat it like an apple, and then it goes completely black. And that is the Turin horse, bro. Um, what? What are you saying? Sorry about that. Fucking A. Wow, this is the worst episode ever. Anyway, this movie's amazing. I kind of loved it. Somebody online described it like drone music, which I think is kind of right. Like, drone music is just kind of like a sound, and it just kind of like slowly evolves. And then, like, the littlest change becomes, like, kind of miraculous. And so that's like once they set up the pace of this movie, the opening shot's like a fucking 5 minute shot of just maybe even more of a guy just like walking with a horse, and the horse is just like in rough shape. And so right off the bat, you're like, I'm like, you know, uh, like this is gonna be a long, slow journey. Yeah, and it's kind of like unlike any movie because it's not plot heavy and it's not character heavy. Like, we don't learn much about the characters, and nothing happens with the plot, which is very rare. A movie usually falls into one or the other category, or a combo of both. I fucking hate this lighting setup. How it shines fucking things in my glass. All right. Anyway, it's kind of a nightmare. It's like a slow dance. Jeez, I really thought I'd have a lot to say about this. I can't really think of anything. I guess. So I think the most brilliant. All right, so it reminds me of Jerry, the movie. That's another kind of drone movie where we just slowly plays out, and then the smallest details become like fucking mountains. And they're kind of both about mortality. Also, there's a movie called Night of the Wolf by Michael Haneke that it reminds me of too, where it's just like kind of the end of the world and people are just trying to figure out how to get by. Um, and it presents a thing like if your life is a horse, like basically like it's your means of doing anything. Like it's your job, and that's where you get money from so that you can buy things. Even if it's the most meager of things, it's not like a room full of DVDs. It's like stuff you need to live. And that horse dies. What do you have? And some people would say, oh, well, you have God, you have faith. And this movie proposes, well, let's say you don't. Let's say it's a godless universe. Like, what do you have other than yourself, And they can't rely on themselves because he's not like capable, and she might be able to do stuff, but she's burdened with him, Like, I'm sure if she went out on her own, she'd be fine, but they're like tied to an anchor that's sinking. And at one point, the father, when they're going to sleep, he goes, I can't hear the woodworms anymore. I've heard them for 58 years, and I can't hear them anymore. They must be like chewing. And she's like, yeah, I can't hear him either. And that's very much like that Holden Caulfield thing, like, where do the fish go when the lake freezes over? Or, Tony Soprano with the ducks, or whatever that other reference was I made earlier in the year. So what I think is the most brilliant part about it is how the form expresses the meaning, which is a thing we talk about a lot. Like, the way it's made is totally in line with this, like, philosophical story, which is not character or plot based. It's kind of like an exercise or like an example, just kind of like a moving painting or something like that. So like in a godless universe, your movie should not feel like there's a director, right? There shouldn't feel like there's somebody above it, like a god figure. Like in a Tarantino movie, you can feel him in every frame. He's like the god of every fucking line of dialogue, no matter what character it's coming from. You hear him in it. In this, it's like you can't even really like notice the edits. It's like, so it feels like really organic and untouched, and like it's just happening and we're watching it. and there's no plans behind it. Like it's not cinema in that sense. Like now, like everything's so adulterated, and they talk about that in this. Like anything man touches, like turns to shit, basically. And like even no matter if you're lowly peasant or a noble, like it ultimately doesn't matter when the darkness comes. So the infinite space they call it of death. You know, death comes to everyone is what this movie could have been called. And but instead of like that, we just say that all the time. Like, oh yeah, I'm gonna, obviously everybody knows they're gonna die, but it's not until you watch the Turin horse for 2 hours and 30 minutes that you understand what it's gonna be like. And I mean that in the best way possible. For we must know our enemy, so we can welcome him at the gates of battle. There's just no affection in this movie. He said the director Bela Tarr was his last movie. He said he made this movie called Satan Tango that's like 8 hours, and I have not seen it. He said it's about the heaviness of human existence. Jesus Christ, that guy must have been a blast at parties, huh? Hey Bella, let's play charades. Movie. One word. The Turin horse. One word. That was a guy eating a potato. Anyway, I think that's genius, though, that it's like it has no director vibe behind it. Like no one's pushing it. Like the camera's so free flowing, it doesn't even feel like it's there. It's really pretty genius. It really puts you in a weird mood, and there's no like pleasantries at all in the movie, like I said. And like everybody's so unhappy. Like they could be keeping each other company, but they don't like have conversation. It's like, dude, get a fucking deck of cards, guys. Make up games or something, you know? Like, make a chess board out of fucking rocks, you know? You can do something, like to make it not so bad, you know? It's like worse than prison. Yeah, it really does feel like a nightmare, and that's kind of perfect. And then at one point, thought it was kind of funny. Like, it's so depressing and so like horrible when they eat like their fourth potato, and the gypsies come and they're like, you're all fucked. Like, we'll just take the water. We don't give a fuck. Come to America. That's when I was like, oh, this is kind of funny. It's kind of like when you watch Eraserhead the first time. You're like horrified by it because you're like not even really sure what you're looking at, and everything's like grotesque and has to do with pregnancy and babies. It's already like pretty upsetting to me, to most dudes, I think. And then the second time or third time you watch it, you're like, oh, it's kind of funny. And then like the fourth, fifth time you watch it, you're like, yeah, it's fucking hysterical. That it's about someone's like a guy being terrified of the thought, or of a baby, you know, of pregnancy, of growing up, of having this responsibility. Like it's like an alien to him. It's like a monster. It's so genius. And then like just the look on Eraserhead's face the whole time becomes like so comical. It's like a silent film. And in this, it was like so poetically done, and you're just like, oh jeez. That reminds me of like when Louis C.K. was on an SNL episode. He did this skit where he's like, I am nothing but the poor Polish immigrant who eat the cabbage or whatever, and it's him and McKinnon. And I don't even remember what it's about. Oh yeah, they're in like a tenement house in it's like a tenement tour of New York, and they're like playing actors who are like reenacting tenement times or whatever. And I was like, oh dude, this is totally like, I know Louis has seen this movie for sure. He watches art movies. I heard him talking about it once, and I've heard him like make references to something like this where people like just have miserable lives and eat potatoes while the wind blows, and I'm pretty sure he's talking about this movie. There is a voiceover narrator every once in a while, like once a day pretty much, and it doesn't necessarily give us, I'm not sure it's needed. I'm not sure it's needed. Okay, let's move this out of the way because it doesn't really give us new information. It does feel yeah, it feels a little unneeded just because it's not giving us more information, but I think it helps make the movie feel like more of a parable or whatever you want to say. Whatever you want to say. All right, let's see what's happening on the music side of sides. Okay. Now let's just bring up old phony phone. On the baloney blown. There we go. And there we go. Okay. Cool. talk to you tomorrow. Take it easy.